Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today as we start into the month of September. And I keep seeing things already telling how many days it is to Christmas. So we'll put that off a little ways. If you will, get your Bible this morning if you're able, and we'll be back in the book of Proverbs in the seventh chapter, Proverbs chapter 7. And we will be starting in the 10th verse and continuing to look at Solomon's teaching, again, emphasizing what he has already said several times about the dangers of immorality. But in this case, he puts it into story form. And we started looking at that yesterday, and he talked about warned of the young man of a man who went into an area where the immoral woman lived, where he was likely to be tempted. And as he's there, verse 10 says, "And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and subtle of heart. She is loud and stubborn, her feet abideth not in her house. Now is she without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner." And so the next step in this story that we see is again the young man in the previous verses. Verse 8 says he went away to her house. He went to the area where he knew this woman resided, where she was. And while he is there, and to go back to that previous passage, the wording that is used there gives the clear impression that he didn't just walk by her house and go home, but he kept walking back and forth. He hung around in the neighborhood. And the lesson we learn today is that if you hang around in that neighborhood, it says there met him a woman. He put himself in that position, and he met this woman. And again, he has foolishly been repeatedly walking past her home in her neighborhood, and she comes out to meet him. And Solomon describes her in some very clear terms. He says she's dressed in alluring attire. The attire of a harlot, which is again just simply means she was dressed seductively, she was dressed scantily, would be the way we would describe it, I guess. She is loud and stubborn. In other words, she that doesn't just mean when it says she's loud and stubborn, it's talking about her attitude towards God. That she is stubborn and loud towards the teachings of God. And then it says her feet does not abide not in her house, and what that means is she's not staying in her home. She's not tending to her marriage. She's not concerned about the promise, the covenant that she has made with her marriage vows. Her feet don't stay in her home. She's not concerned with her husband and her responsibilities there. Again, her commitment and her vows to him. She is out in the town. Now she is without, now in the streets. And again, she's a woman who is obviously a wild woman, I guess we'd say. And it's easy again and to focus on the woman in this passage, and to look at her actions. And certainly there is a lesson there to be learned about improper behavior, not just for a woman, but for a man as well. That we behave ourselves modestly, that we are faithful to our marriage. One of the problems I think sometimes that comes up in the book of Proverbs in some of these passages is because of the obvious, if you've studied anything about history, especially that history in the Middle Eastern area there, the strong emphasis on the male in society, and the lack of respect, I guess you'd say, for the female, that a lot of these passages sometimes can look like they're really throwing women under the bus. But again, I think we can take this message and apply it. Men, we should be faithful to our homes, our wives, our marriage as well. And then I think the real lesson, again, that we take from this passage is just an extension of the passage we looked at yesterday. This young man, he goes, he says, as we looked at the passage yesterday, he says that he saw among the young men a man that was void of understanding, and he passed through the street near her corner. He went the way to her house. And he stayed there from twilight, from the afternoon on into the dark. So he stayed in that place. And it says, then in this verse, in the passage we look at today, sure enough, he met a woman. And so there's a real strong lesson there, obviously, about immorality and adultery, but I think it's a safe application of the passage as well, to say, he put himself in that situation, and if you stay there long enough, you're going to get caught. If you, again, we used the expression yesterday, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. We look and, I look at these, this is maybe a poor illustration, but I see a lot of these folks on TV, some of these nature shows handling snakes and, other wild animals and those kind of things. And, eventually you read or you hear that they got bit or trampled or something. If you keep putting yourself in that place, it's one thing to walk through the neighborhood. It's another thing to hang out in the neighborhood. And that's where this young man, he made his mistake. I remember years ago hearing someone describe what lust means. It's one thing if you see a pretty woman to look, but it's when you turn around and look again, that's when trouble starts. And that when we dwell, we keep putting ourselves, when we stay in that place, when we recognize that we're in a place that is likely to lead to sin, likely to lead to trouble, the lesson that we can draw this morning is get out, get away from it. It's a saying I've heard all my life. I don't know where I heard it the first time, but it said a good run is better than a bad stand. This young man learned that lesson the hard way, and we need to learn from his mistake and be sure, if we're putting ourselves repeatedly in those situations, know that eventually we will get burned. You have a good day. You think about that. Avoid those situations, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning.